The fifth principle we want to share with you is stretch yourself and be willing to fail. Willing to fail, but not a failure. You must set high goals and stretch yourself to realize your potential. Only by failing periodically will you know you're pushing yourself to the envelope of your talent, that you're living your life to the fullest. I failed so many ways in my top 3 priorities, mind, body, and soul. These are the things I value most, and they're the ones I typically push the hardest, and every once in a while I push too hard. Sometimes there's no good news in those failures, but often there is. You see, sometimes when you know what you want to accomplish in your life, and others think you're failing, or it looks like you're failing on the surface, well, you're actually succeeding. Let me share a few examples with you. I told you in another video that I ran with Frank Shorter back in about 1972 when he moved in next door to me. I didn't tell you, though, that at that time I really wanted to be a good runner. Oh, not as good as Frank Shorter, but I wanted to be as good as I could be. And so I wanted to run with the best. And when I go out and run with these fellows, for 2 to 3 years, I had one goal, one secret goal. I didn't tell anyone. But you know what I wanted? I wanted to beat Frank Shorter in a training run when he didn't know we were racing. Now, that's not a very ambitious goal. You'd think I'd have a good shot at it, but it never happened. You see, we'd be running along, and we'd be about 10 miles into the run, and I was right there with him, and that was going to be the day I did it. And then Frank would look over at his buddies, and they'd say, well, let's pick up the pace. And what they meant was, let's leave Wilson behind. You see, no matter how hard I tried, they were just so much better than I was. They were world-class athletes. But even though I failed to beat them, and therefore failed to meet this little goal I had, well, the bigger goal, the one that was intrinsic to me, was to become a much better runner. And I became a better runner by running with runners that fast. So you see, sometimes when you seem to fail, you're actually succeeding, providing you know what it is you're trying to accomplish. A second example. When I graduated my PhD, I got a job at Stanford. And I went there because I wanted to work with the best. And I wanted to stretch my mind as far as I could and find out what my potential was as a scholar. One of the things that I wanted to do was to work with the very, very best. And so I did everything possible to work with 2 scholars who I greatly admired. One was Myron Scholes, who's won a Nobel Prize, and the other one was Mark Wolfson, who was on the President's Council of Economic Advisors. These were highly regarded scholars, and everyone wanted to work with them. So you had to work really hard to get their attention, not because they didn't want to give it, but just because there wasn't enough of them to go around. And I did that. I read every paper they ever wrote. I just worked so hard. And you know what? After a while, I got to work with them. And then I set a goal. Another one of those little goals that really isn't what's fundamentally important, but sort of motivates you on the edge. All I wanted to do was to beat them at an argument just once. Just once beat them at an argument. And so I tried for 2, 3, 4 years to beat them at an argument, and it never happened. It just didn't happen. They were so good that I just couldn't win an argument. But by working with them, I became a much, much better scholar. And that, after all, was what I was trying to do. Again, you see, you can succeed even when on the surface it looks like you're losing. You succeed when you meet your intrinsic goals. Sometimes when extrinsically, that is on the outside, which you're using to motivate you, sometimes you fail at those goals. Keep in mind, I've also failed many, many times over where I haven't succeeded. And so I wouldn't want to give you the impression that every time you push, you win. Failing facilitates progress towards your vision, towards what you're trying to accomplish in your life when you compete with the very best. Find people to work with who are going to challenge you. That will make you so much better. I could win races in 1972 when the people who could beat me just didn't show up that day. But you see, that wouldn't have made me as good as running with people who could beat me. And when you lose, and sometimes we lose, and I mean lose, then identify the lessons learned. What did I get from this? And when you do this, you're going to be stretching yourself, you're going to be willing to fail, and you're going to live your life to the fullest because you know what you're trying to accomplish, and you're going to make your best progress towards that by pushing yourself really hard. Don't be afraid to fail.